Stay right there. What are you waiting for? Kill them! Kill them both! No, wait a minute. Is it money you're after? I'll give you as much as you want.
May the saints forgive you, because I won't.
You have kind of like a splendorous array of ideas, I think. I think you're an idea person and you have a lot of creative energy that is going to be expressing itself in the next couple months. So I'm really excited to have you on. You've got a great Substack. You just had a piece published. You just did another show. And I want you to describe yourself, introduce yourself, and plug any work that you want in any way that you want. So take it away, Jennifer. I'm sorry. I apologize. It was kind of a meandering intro, but I'm excited and thank you very much for coming on.
No, that was a great intro. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so I guess in terms of work, I mean, I've been writing a lot of short stories, and we'll hopefully have a short story collection to kind of shop around soon. Yeah, so, and then I guess I've written a novel and I'm working on another one, which is kind of like, so the novel that I wrote is like, it's like set in the 70s and it's kind of about this escape from an institution, and these two characters end up in the desert at this like kind of, I guess, suicide sex cult, and the guy who runs it believes he's the reincarnation of Rasputin, and so it's this kind of like crazy kind of madcap story. I've been sort of, I guess, querying that, and then I'm working on another novel right now, which is it's like, I guess you could say it's like Heathers meets 90s disaffected teen culture. So yeah, it's just like kind of loosely inspired by the film Heathers, which I love, and my own kind of youth growing up in a trailer park in like in the 90s. So, and all the kind of like music and culture and stuff that went with that. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm working on right now. I guess, and then my Substack, where I've been reviewing kind of like transgressive literature by women writers, which is just something that's always been, I don't know, I guess inspiring to me. So yeah, I guess that's where I'm at with my writing career at the moment. Hopefully one day I'll have a novel to plug, but yeah.
Well, I think that's a great CV. So I think that's a good place to be. So thank you so much for that. I want to ask you now. I have to ask you like 3 questions, but I have to obviously start with one. So one thing that really interested me, and this isn't for, I guess I'll just ask you. So you mentioned that you were raised in a trailer park in the 90s. This is not I would say not a common sort of origin story for a Canlit writer. Not that you're in Canlit or whatever, but I'm just for the landscape of like what is Canadian literature. This is not a common story.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, and I agree. Like you see a lot of like kind of really Canadian literature tends to be more kind of like academic, literary, like, yeah, and there's not a lot of kind kind of like less academic voices in Canlit. Yeah, I didn't really come to, like, I came to writing as a reader. Like I'm a big reader, and so yeah, I mean, reading was sort of like an escape from a very tumultuous kind of difficult childhood, and I guess I came to writing just from being just such an avid reader. It just kind of like seemed like a natural progression, I guess.
So I guess my second part is then what did you read growing up? I kind of know the answer to this, which is why I'm asking, but I think you give a really good answer, so I'm gonna ask anyway.
Yeah, so I read everything, but like when I was really young, just starting out, I got hooked on horror. So I read a lot of Anne Rice, Clive Barker, Stephen King, and then I kind of went to like, by the time I was like maybe 11, 12, I was reading like, Dickens, and who else was I reading? I was reading, Oscar Wilde, and like just like I used to go to there was this used bookstore in town, and my mom was a big romance reader. So every week she would go and buy like 3 or 4 of these romance novels from this used bookstore and trade in her old books. So she'd take me with her, and I'd take my allowance, and I would search the shelves for anything that looked interesting, and I'd pick up all these weird books, like, and like I had Poe, and I was reading Shakespeare, and like just I would just pick up all these volumes. Like the bigger the book, the better, because it was such a heavy reader that I would go through them so fast, and I would get bored because I had run out of material. So I'd pick up these really big kind of like story collections and stuff. Yeah, so I like a lot of different stuff, I guess. And I even read, like, I would run out of books and I would read my mom's bodice rippers. I've probably read like maybe 100 of them. Yeah, I just read lots of different stuff. Oh, and lots of fantasy too. I was reading like David Eddings, and Terry Brooks, and who else? Oh, Anne McCaffrey. And I loved all the like what's her name? Pauline Gedge. Oh, she does these like Egyptian, kind of like ancient Egyptian historical fiction. She's Canadian, actually. She's really great. I've read all her books. And yeah, so that's kind of what I was reading when I was younger. And then as I got older, I started reading more, like a lot more literary fiction, and still a lot of like, I've always been into like genre fiction too. Yeah, so that's kind of what I was reading as a kid, teen, I guess.
Well, I love Clive Barker. I love the Discworld series,
Oh,
and
he's great.
right, and then I also people don't really know this, but in Canada in general, this is like a very broad Canadiana thing, but we have really good used bookstores, like amazing.
Yes.
And you can really get like amazing things, and the shelves are, I mean, they don't even really have shelves. Sometimes the books are just like overflowing, and it's those kind of places, and they're in every small town, and every out of the way highway. So it's kind of a cool, that's a great story. Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
I also was a big reader, and I also was very voracious. So I can identify with that part of your story, in the sense that like I would literally read anything. Like if it was like anything with words, basically, I would read it. So I understand that the struggle was real. I want to talk though about your Substack a little bit. And
Yeah.
first of all, ask you, I know this is going to be like a shock for the show. So not really, but a little bit. But what is the definition of transgressive for you?
Oh, so transgressive is just anything that is kind of taboo to talk about. So, like kind of more graphic, like anything that is maybe not mainstream, pretty like sex, but not just like kind of vanilla sex, like violence, um, and even just like, especially for women, just like speaking out of turn, I guess, just not following social norms, and being vocal and having opinions that kind of don't necessarily go with the flow, I guess.
That's cool. I can vibe with that for sure. Um, What attracts you to this kind of literature of the transgressive, especially like in the context of a feminist frame?
I think I mean, growing up, I saw so much violence and hardship and drugs and abuse and sexual abuse, and I saw a lot of that stuff kind of firsthand, and I think as a society we kind of sweep a lot of it under the rug, like we especially in literature, like we're not. I mean, you see more of it in film, but in literature, like it's such a like nice kind of thing, right? Like everything is very nice and kind of proper, and I'm drawn more to the books that kind of illustrate the human condition a little better. Like I don't want to read someone's Brooklyn divorce novel, and I'm not really into reading about the special girl who gets the Prince Charming. Like those things don't really appeal to me. I want like the heart and soul and the meat of like life. I'm really interested in the humanity of in literature, and especially of women who are historically underrepresented and don't necessarily haven't had as much of a voice to share their like interiority and how the world affects them. And so those things are important to me, and I think about them a lot. And yeah, I guess I'm just drawn to authenticity and struggle, I guess. I don't know. I guess you could call it trauma porn. Like it's just like it I guess I like to feel something. I don't and not necessarily just, joy. I don't know if that's strange, I guess maybe a little bit, but
No, I think for this show, that's perfectly. I think everything you said was perfectly in line. Like looking for the sort of the interiority, the voice of the, not necessarily the voiceless, but people who don't necessarily are not well represented just in like mainstream opinion, or even their perspectival angle that they come at things from. I think that is something more interesting. I mean, I call the show speculative ontologies, Jennifer. So, it's that kind of it's I feel like whenever I have anyone on, we're always going to talk about something in a little bit of a different framework, or we're going to be flexible with the framework that already exists or that we're naming. So for me, this is exactly what I like.
oh,
So
that's so great. That's awesome.
not weird at all. Um, I do want to ask you a little bit about place, because this is something we were talking about a little pre-recording. Um, for a lot of Canadian writers, and I'm not classifying myself amongst writers or poets, but I do dabble. And I, I've asked everyone that's come on the show about this idea of like relational ontology, but more in the sense of like place, because this was a big question, I guess, if you were following like the indigenous sort of arc of the last 10 years, is like, how can you be more relational to place? And I think this has been a long idea in Canadian and Canlit, just generally, like how do Eastern Canadians, Western Canadians, Vancouverites, how do they all relate to place? Because we live in this place that is quite incredible and, and vast and very
Yeah.
different and regional. So I just want to, I guess, a long-winded way to say, does place affect your writing? Do you draw from it, or not, or not? It could be not, but I just feel like there is a kind of rhythm or energy, if you want to call it that, or a vibe that like comes from place that is a little stronger for maybe us. I don't know. You can fight me on that. That's okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like regionalism, like I mean, where I grew up in Alberta, Edmonton, just outside of Edmonton, I grew up in a small town, or just outside of a small town. I kind of grew up in the middle of nowhere. And for me, I mean, it runs all through a lot of my writing. Just that kind of like the sense of kind of isolation, and the prairies, and the atmosphere and the people, like the regional kind of like some of the dialect and some of the just the behaviors, and I think they definitely run through a lot of my writing. Yeah, I would say, I mean, the short story collection that I'm almost finished will be essentially kind of based around having grown up in a trailer park. So it's all just kind of like, it's all kind of like autofiction or nonfiction, and they're stories that just kind of are based mostly around a lot of them are character studies of just people I've known and grown up with, and that had affected me in some significant way. So yeah, in terms of place, I think it definitely runs through my writing in a way that that is inseparable. Like you know, you could definitely tell that I am from the Canadian prairies. It's not something that is that I try to hide. I think, yeah.
I like that a lot because as you were saying, as you mentioned pre-recording it, you know, it's we don't often, even though we're all on Twitter, there's a lot of Canadians on Twitter. We're pretty spread out, and we're pretty like the ones that are cool with each other. I think you referred to indie, kind of the alt lit indie lit zine as kind of a punk scene, and yes, it is. There's little cliques and little like politics within it, but yeah, it's pretty cool actually. So, but we don't meet each other very often. So I think that there is like a kind of there's a language that we can speak, but it is of course regional. So you know, it kind of is like you have to rep for the home team, but then how familiar are you with the actual like lived, quote unquote, lived experience of that home team? So
Yeah, for sure.
okay, well, let's get into your recent Twitter thread on psychedelics. I think you did
Oh,
mushroom.
I
Well,
appreciate
it's a
that.
great topic for this show, right? Because
I love that.
I often talk about like the like having magical experiences or Sephirotic experiences. I
Yeah,
don't really call them magical per se. Like I'm not really a, you know, like some people who have occult podcasts, it's very unverified personal gnosis, I guess you could say. For
yeah,
me, I'm very pragmatic. I'm very practical. I'm very like on the ground. Like this is what I do. And sometimes you see colors, and sometimes you see more than colors. Sometimes you see words. And so that's where I'm at with that. So psychedelics, usually I don't discuss, but I thought, well, she's coming on. She had a great Twitter thread on this. Scott did it the next day. Scott was just on the show. So, you know, why not talk about it?
awesome. Um, yeah, it was like I just I hadn't done mushrooms in a really long time, and I've had some just kind of like sitting in my drawer for like, I don't know, I think it's like a couple years now, and I just I think it's great to every once in a while. It's kind of um you know, like it's transcendental. Like you just um you feel kind of connected to the universe, and it's a really cool experience. And I had joked kind of about doing them and live tweeting, and two people right away were like, oh, let's do it. I'm gonna join you. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm committed now. So yeah, we set a date, and the two people who did it with me didn't really have much of a, one had kind of a bad trip and didn't really like participate, and the other didn't really have much of a trip. Like their mushrooms didn't take, but the mushrooms I got were probably the strongest I've ever taken. And I had more of like an LSD type trip than a mushroom, like a psilocybin trip. And I was like, for about an hour, I couldn't even I couldn't do anything. It was just like everything was too intense. So but yeah, it was fun, and just kind of great to just play around a little bit. I don't typically do like drugs or anything like that. It's just I did a lot as a teen, but I don't anymore. It's kind of a very rare once in a blue moon thing, just because. And psychedelics for me are a good one because I mean they're low risk, they're not really habit forming, and they're safer than alcohol in terms of like safety profile. So it's not like you're doing something that's going to harm you irreparably in any kind of way. So I feel comfortable doing them. yeah, it was just it was a lot of fun. I tweeted some funny things that and I didn't tweet some things that I probably I had thought about tweeting. But yeah, that was kind of my reasoning for doing it. Just I had joked about it and a couple people were like, let's do it. So yeah.
Well, I'm not a big, like, I don't really do, I mean, I smoke pot, obviously. Who am I kidding? I'm a millennial Canadian boy. Like, it is what it is. But I am very, like, I live a very clean lifestyle, like very clean, like no tobacco, no Advil, no alcohol, like no pharma, pretty much. Like, I don't take anything.
Yeah.
And so, I totally understand like what you're saying. Like, you're just dabbling. It's just like a thing you're, exploring your consciousness. I don't have a problem with that at all. So there's no judgment is what I want to say. It's not like I'm like, oh my God, it's so bad. No, I take mushrooms once, like maybe once or twice a year. Low
Oh, wow.
dose.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's like I feel like psilocybin is a great friend in a way. I know it's been described as this before, but it's like you said, it's like it's very dose dependent and it's very context dependent. I've only had really great experiences personally. I've never really had any bad mushroom experience ever.
Yeah, me
but
neither. I've never freaked out or anything. Yeah.
But I know people who have. So that is a little scary sometimes when you hear their stories. But I do think that for some people who have like a natural predisposition to be very cerebral or much more in the interior, I think it actually can really help bring them out, because that's what helps me. When I used to do it, like more in my early 20s, I would see the colors of things would seem very vivid. It was not very psychedelic for me, but I guess I felt more for me. And that was
Yeah.
always like a difficult challenge. So
Oh,
I
interesting.
appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a positive experience for me. I've never had a trip where it was like, although this one was really intense. Like it was like being on LSD, which is a lot more intense than being on mushrooms. So I was surprised at how hard it hit me and how quickly. And I was a little bit nervous that it was gonna get like too intense, because I haven't done LSD since I was like a teen. But it ended up being fine. An hour into it, I started to mellow and I was like, okay, I can manage this.
I want to ask you about if you've ever had supernatural experiences.
Oh, so I mean I have, but I don't know if I necessarily qualify them as supernatural.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
So yeah, so I have a really strange kind of like story, because when I was a teenager, when I was about 14, I got kicked out of the house and I ended up I used to babysit for this lady, and she was a Wiccan. And so I ended up living with her for like a few months anyways. And yeah, so she like taught me to read tarot and like was like yeah, she was just kind of like really into like witchcraft and whatever. And so I remember one night when I was babysitting, so her and her boyfriend used to go out all the time. So it was kind of their regular babysitter or whatever. And so I was babysitting and I was sleeping. I had fallen asleep and I heard a noise in the kitchen. And I was like, what is that noise? It sounded like someone was walking around. And so at first I was like, okay, I should get up and go check. And then I started to get a little like panicky. You know, sometimes when you hear stuff and you're alone and, started to get a little panicky. So I waited, and eventually the noise stopped. And so I got up. I finally got enough nerve to get up and go check. And there was nothing there. And I went and checked on the kids, and they were all in bed. So it wasn't like the kids had gotten up. And like you could see most of the kitchen from the living room. It wasn't like I couldn't see. So like I didn't know where the noise was coming from. And I thought maybe it was the cat, but the cat was, in the bedroom with the kids. So I don't know. And so I didn't think much of it after that. I thought, okay, this was probably just the cat walking around, whatever. And so I go to sleep, and the next morning I wake up, and this lady that I babysit for, she says to me, you had a visitor last night. And I'm like, what? I was like, no, I didn't have anybody over. Like, because I'm thinking she thinks I had like guys over or something, right? And I was like, no, I didn't have anybody over. What do you mean I had a visitor? She's like, oh, your spirit guide came to visit you, and they're trying to tell you something, but you're not listening. I had a dream about it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's really weird. So that was kind of a weird experience that I had. And then once when I was little, I swear that there was a ghost at the end of my bed. Maybe five or six. And then the other thing that, and as an adult and through my teens and stuff, I have like mental health issues, and I kind of see and hear weird things sometimes. But I'm always cautious because my dad was schizophrenic, and like a lot of my family is schizophrenic. Like I have uncles, and I had a cousin that was very badly schizophrenic. He ended up overdosing. So I'm very cautious about what I like internalize and believe about my, my experiences. So, yeah, I guess. Oh, and the one other strange thing is when I was a kid, I used to have reoccurring dreams about being a pregnant teenager in labor, like being like 16 or 17 or something. And it was always the exact same dream, and I probably had it 100 times. And I always wonder, like past life experience, or like some sort of like, I don't know, some sort of residual something. It's always kind of stuck with me because I was too young to even really know what it would be like to be in labor and to be in a hospital room like that. So it's really a really strange dream, kind of reoccurring dream that I've had for years, and started when I was very little. So yeah, that's kind of the basis of my I guess experience. I do see occasionally and hear weird things, but I'm very cautious about thinking of them as supernatural. So
I think you might be surprised to hear this, but so do I. Like I'm known as kind of not a skeptic, but I definitely take an anti-supernaturalist approach when I discuss magic. And very rarely do I discuss like ghosts or those kinds of like exterior phenomena. For me,
yeah,
it's not I don't tell anyone what they can discuss, of course, but just for me and my like the way I kind of view the world, I'm very I tend to be more conservative in like my articulation of it. But I do think there's a thread, if you want my kind of like macrocosmic overview opinion. I do think that there's a thread between your experiences. I think it is like a lot to do with like what we would call the daimon, or the holy guardian angel, or as your Wiccan friend said, like your spirit guide. I think that those three things they're not all the same thing, but they're all interrelated. And so perhaps it is kind of like your muse that kind of brought you to perhaps writing. Maybe writing is your kind of like the thing that you have to birth into the world, or it could be, it's some other thing, but it can be a metaphor for many things, obviously. But creative projects are very generative, and a lot of people say that that's when they experience their like daimon or their muse or whatever they want to call it, is like through the act of creation.
yeah, I can kind of get behind that. I don't have any like I'm not for or against necessarily any like supernatural explanations. I just feel like I don't know, like I think I'm really kind of interested in like quantum mechanics and stuff like that kind of bridge some of that gap of knowledge. I think we might at some point be able to connect some of these experiences to actual scientific explanations, and I don't necessarily need a scientific explanation. It's just I'm very reluctant to say I know one way or the other what is going on. I think I think I'm probably whatever it is, I'm probably more in tune with than the average person, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe there are more people that are experiencing these kind of phenomena and just not talking about it. I don't know, but yeah, I think I'm having experiences. I can't quantify them or really say what's causing them. So.
Well, I think it was very vulnerable and very fair that you said that, but also shared about your family and their sort of history with mental health. I think that this is something that it's not necessarily that I worry about this anymore. Like definitely during COVID, um, everybody was a little wilder. We all were a little wilder in a way, in at least intellectually, ideologically, maybe. So we had there were people, I'm not necessarily saying myself, but there were definitely people who had more far-ranging ideas of like the politics of the world, like more conspiratorial. And I'm not condemning that either, but I'm I do understand if you feel like a reticence because of your own family's history. And I also feel like a reticence to be like overt and say, oh yes, like the ghost is like right in front of, like, no, I have come into conflict many times with other people, other podcasters, other whatever, wizards, magicians, whatever you want to call them, like because and I'm not saying that they don't exist, but I tend to take a much more, like you do, Jennifer, like a much more rooted position where I'm like, yeah, most phenomena is of the mind, but I can allow for like 10% of being something else. So I appreciate that. And thank you for being vulnerable.
Yeah, no problem.
So maybe this is sort of like an addendum or a counterpoint, but not really. It's not like in opposition. I do think, though, when speaking to so many poets and writers, like over the last couple months, especially, I do think that there is a kind of connection to, I don't want to call it higher consciousness, but there's maybe you could say an altered consciousness. Like you were talking about we were talking about doing mushrooms. It's not that it's so gross that as that is like it's not so much in like outer phenomena. It's not like you're taking psychedelics every day to like try and write better. But I do think that there is perhaps something that is shared among not everybody, but I do think some people are more, like you said, in tune with it. So I don't think
Yeah,
it's that abnormal or anything. It's
I
not
I
weird for
do
me.
think creatives in general are just, they're higher in openness, and they're more connected and in tune with their internal experience and how they experience the world and what they're taking in and what they're seeing. I think in general it's pretty common for creatives to be a bit more um, high in openness and attuned to what is going on internally and externally.
I know I kind of stole your bar about outlet being a punk scene. So that total credit to Jennifer. That was not, I didn't come up with that. But I do want to ask you, like, what is your current, like, does traditional Canlit excite you? Does it not excite? Like, you can answer however you want. And then let's talk about outlet a little bit and like what you find interesting or exciting about that scene and how it's like kind of unfolding in its way on Twitter or on socials.
I'm not particularly excited by Canlit, so there's not just like not a lot going on in Canlit that is really kind of different. It's all kind of the same. I think it's is it the CBC writing prize or something? Every year they do this big prize and they award, I think it's like 5 or 6 authors for short stories, and I always read them hoping to be impressed, and I'm always just really bored by what I read. So yeah, I guess in terms of like the indie scene, it's more punk. It's a little more in your face. It's a little more like I like the stories that that kind of are different, and I don't want to, I don't want to read the same stories over and over again. And I kind of feel like a lot of Canlit is like that. It's just kind of like these really kind of dull stories. Yeah, and I think, sorry, I think I had something better to say, and then the thing died. I connect with the indie scene a lot better. There are a lot of writers that that I'm quite fond of. Like Scott is one who was just on your podcast. His book Play the Devil is great. There's Gillian Luft is amazing. Who else do I love? Oh, there's so many, and I'm gonna forget to name them all. But yeah, the indie scene is great. Like the work is a little more raw. It's a little more. It feels a little more authentic, less like it's pandering to an audience.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I mean, I don't want to say that because then, they will kill me because I am saying that they don't want an audience when they clearly do. But I agree with you very strongly that it's not the same thing. It's not You're not going to go into Indigo or whatever it is, and you're not going to get the kind of books if you go to the Canlit shelf or whatever it is, or section. Yeah, those books are pretty boring. I always thought that in university too, because they make you take a Canlit credit. I found it all very boring. I'm just being
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's kind of my opinion on it too. It's just very dull. Like it feels like dull stories about dull people who have dull ideas. I hate to say that because I'm sure there are some really great ones kind of hidden amongst the rest of them, and I'm missing out probably on a lot of really great literature. But in general, the vibe is just not very exciting and not very original feeling to me. It all feels kind of the same.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a kind of homogeneity that not only is selected for, but is pretty much the history of Canlit. I
Yeah,
mean, in the canon, I'm not talking about like great writers. Like Canada has many great writers.
yeah,
It's just that what's included in the canon is it's all very Wonder Bread. And I don't mean that in a racial way at all. I just mean it's all the same.
yeah, I agree.
And
And
it's
I
unfortunate.
like Margaret Atwood. I've read all of her
Look,
books, and I really enjoy her. But yeah, in terms of like the ones that are kind of pushed in school and stuff, they're just not very interesting.
I mean, I posted about Mordecai Richler one day, and I had all these people, all these Americans being like, "Who is that?" I'm like, "You didn't read this? This is like considered like Canlit, like classic, like like kind of boy fiction, I guess."
Yeah,
But people didn't even know who it was. I was like, "Wow, we really need to, get those older names out there because like what people are associating with it." And for the record, I don't like Margaret Atwood. It's not even a political question. I just don't. It just does nothing for me. But
have you read her older stuff like Cat's Eye and Alice Grace?
so I do like her older stuff. That's what I was gonna say. Is like the stuff from like my high school days.
Yeah,
I can vibe with it. Then I feel like I just feel politics wrecks everything. Like, and I mean, I don't mean it in like a charged way. I mean when you get so overt in it that you have to
yeah,
kind
no,
of.
I agree. I'm fonder of her older work. I really like her old stuff. So her newer work is doesn't really grab me as much. But I think she's
No,
got. Although I did really like Oryx and Crake. Did you read that one?
I didn't read that one.
Oh, you actually might like that. I think you
Okay.
might be surprised by it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's worth a read for sure, for sure.
Well, I do. I know I have one listener to the show who really loves Margaret Atwood, who would fight me for saying that I don't really like it because we got not in a heated debate. It was very funny and friendly, fraternal about her politics. And I just was like, well, she's very lib and all that. And he was like, but she's a great writer. And I was like, okay, I concede. You can't like what am I going to say about it, right? Like I just I just found her a little too much for a while. And she was really pushed hard. Like on like CBC and all that. Like they really push.
They
I'm
do,
not saying
yeah,
she's not
yeah,
a great
absolutely.
writer.
Absolutely. Yeah, but I think you might like Oryx and Crake. So it delves into like it's set in this kind of like dystopian world where it's like they live in these compounds and they're like people on the outside and people on the inside, but they're like genetically engineering things. And there's this whole subplot about this like these kids find this like pornography of this like little Asian girl, and then later on the one meets her and they become lovers, and it's like it's really strange and really bizarre and really interesting. I think you might like it.
It does sound like, I mean, you're selling it. Maybe it's like the way that you're telling the story, but it does make me sound interested. So I will go read it after this. So I'm still a
Awesome.
voracious reader. I just really stick to nonfiction now. I mean, I
Oh,
read if people send
what do
me
you
books.
read? What's
Well,
your nonfiction kind of?
I read a lot of like I read a lot of grimoires. I read a lot of
Okay, cool.
I read a lot on Buddhism, like mostly
Nice.
on Buddhism. That's like my main number one focus. But I
Oh,
read a
that's
lot
cool.
on
I had a phase
Buddhism.
in school where I was reading all the Buddhist books, and I've forgotten most of it, but yeah, it's very cool.
I never had a philosophy phase. Like I never was one of those kids. Like my background's in art history and area studies, so I was never like I never it never took me. Like it never was like really grabbed me. I was never one of those guys.
But you are now,
Well, I only like the stuff that I like. I'm very
like the
picky, you
Eastern
could say.
philosophy.
Well, because my
Yeah.
dad's Chinese, it makes sense for me. I lived in Asia. I've like my grandparents are Buddhist. I've been around it my whole life.
Right. So it resonates for sure.
Right, and then I did a lot of magic, like you were saying you experimented with other things in your teenage years. Well, I experimented with a lot of magic. So, which is no secret to anyone who lives on the listens to the show at all. But I'm just saying that I needed something that was um I needed a religious framework, I'm just going to be honest, to sort of contain me and also like contain my ideas of the world as well as allow me sort of flexibility in like how I wanted to. I don't want to say live a magical life because that sounds very LARPy. I'm not saying that. But I do think that I wanted something that would allow me to explore the ideas that I had already learned. And Tantric Buddhism allowed me to do that. So it was a perfect fit, to be honest, for me. I'm not saying for anyone else, but for me, it really was. And so I identify really strongly with it. And so I guess in an effort to make up for my wayward years, I just absorbed as much as I could, like anything I could read on Buddhist metaphysics, ontology, tantra, anything. I read anything.
Oh,
So,
that's very cool.
but it
I
doesn't
think
really
we're all
sell me
sort
for
of
writers, right? Because
I
I'm
think
not
we're all
reading their
sort
stuff.
of looking for, the thing to connect with. I think there's some like universal need to connect with something outside of ourselves. And I think it's great that people find ways to do that. I think some people get too caught up in what it is, like oh you're wrong and I'm right or whatever. And I don't think like that at all. I think that there are like so many different paths to like connecting and being a little more spiritual and being more open and being more receptive to the universe. And I think it's great that anybody finds something that they connect with and that they that makes them feel more connected. So I think it's great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I think it's great too, but I again, I don't push it on anyone. People do sometimes write me and ask me about it, but I'm just like, I don't know anything. Um, I definitely have been rigid at times, but I am a flexible as a person, I keep my framework very flexible. Like I know what I am, like I'm a tantric Buddhist for sure, but I also can like incorporate other ideas and other people's ways of being in the world. That's no problem for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I feel like there's some universality to
Absolutely.
a lot of these different, not even just religions, but like philosophies and beliefs and whatever. There's some, something that a thread that connects them all. And I think it's great to be able to, incorporate the cultural elements and to connect with those and also be able to have those kind of broader thoughts that where you're thinking about the universe and you're thinking about the nature of humanity and the nature of good and evil and the nature of yourself. And I think those are really great things, so that's really cool.
Thank you. I agree with you 100%, obviously, that I think it is about like being expansive as a person within yourself, like not necessarily action, but at least in your mind. So I agree. Having those bigger questions, I think that's a really important thing. But we do have long winters here, so there's a lot of time for praying or practice or mantra or sadhana or whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of time here for doing that. So we're
For
kind
sure.
of, and I want to sort of I know this is like it's been a long time since COVID happened, but I know you just have discussed before how you became sort of a writer, like you passed through that gateway of COVID, like every single person who's listening to this, whether they consider it like a great event or a small event in their life, I think everybody would acknowledge it was a kind of like a pylon on the like it was like a way marker that
Yeah, for
like definitely we change times. That's sort of what I think of it. If you want to use
Mhm.
very more metaphysical language,
Absolutely.
we all kind of we had to realign with this new reality a little bit, and I think we're a lot of us are still figuring it out. But I want to ask you about that, like your COVID experience, however much you want to get into it, and then how that sort of became a place where you could start to draw the words again.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a bit, I guess, it was boring, but it was very liberating to I had always like I was a working photographer. I did weddings for like over a decade, and before that, I was in restaurant management. So I'd always been working and working a lot, and I had young kids at home while I was working, so I was juggling working my schedule around. Like my kids were never in daycare, so I didn't have any like help kind of my husband and I kind of worked back and forth between our schedules, and my mom would take them, you know so I was always like busy. Like I never had time to just sit and write because I either had parenting duties or I had to be working. And so COVID, shut everything down. Like, I mean, there's no market for a wedding photographer during COVID. Um, so it allowed me time to actually to pick up a new hobby. And I was reading and watching all the Bond films kind of at the time, and I'm really into like Soviet history. And so I was like, you know what? I could write a spy novel. Like this doesn't look that hard. So yeah, I wrote a spy novel set in Soviet Russia, and that's kind of what got me into writing, just as a challenge, as something to do, because I had all this extra time now that I had never had before, and I'd always thought to myself, it'd be really cool to write a book. I love reading so much, and yeah, so that was kind of what got me on the journey to writing. And COVID for me was both positive and negative. It was really hard on the kids. The isolation, like my youngest was in grade 1 and my oldest was in grade 4, and it just like took its toll on them. It was so hard doing the online schooling, and then trying to get them back into like school after like 2 kind of introverted, shy kids that had missed all this schooling, and had been doing it online. And so it was a stressful time with the kids, but in terms of like freedom, it freed up my time to be able to work on a novel, and I realized that I could write quite quickly, and I enjoyed doing it. So it was kind of the thing that propelled me into writing. Yeah.
Awesome. That was a great answer. It really was. Because like you can
Thanks.
say it was, I mean, because COVID was very negative for me in the outer perception. Like in my initial feelings, I didn't was very unhappy.
Yeah,
But it
it is an unhappy time. It's so lonely, right? Like,
right.
and you lose your a lot of people lost their livelihoods,
Yes.
and yeah.
But it did allow me to really practice Buddhism. Like I really got into doing that. I started studying Kabbalah. I like had a lot of things that kind of aligned for me, that clicked for me, that were not new things necessarily, but it kind of came together in a totally different way. I started to realize like, oh, I'm actually kind of okay. Like I'm actually kind of stable in my practice. I'm actually kind of like capable of like carrying on despite like hardship. So I feel like it was a great winnowing of people in a way. Not to say that other people like suffering or anything that they didn't have the wherewithal, but I felt like it was like a mark of my own to sort of like continue on, and then also like to be generative and do this project, because that's really where that came from, like to do this, even though I've only been doing it for 3 years. So
Oh,
It's a
that's
great
great. So the
answer.
seed kind of started there, and you've moved into this. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Someone, a British guy asked me on his show, and literally, I had no intention of ever doing it. I was more, I don't know if I would call myself shy and introverted, but I definitely did not speak on any subject publicly on anything. Pretty much, I was
Right.
very quiet. And so it was like a huge, I was like, I want to see if I can do it. Because I had all these ideas. Like, I'm a very cerebral person. So it's not like I wouldn't listen to podcasts and be like, I can do better. Of course I did that. But
Right. That's
I was
awesome.
like, I don't think I was like, I don't know if I could really do it. So it was like a real test of my temperament.
Well, that's great. The podcast is awesome. So this is cool that it kind of spurred you on to be able to do this. That's great.
Oh, I agree with you. And that's why I liked your COVID story, because I feel like you can look at it like it was 100% negative, or you can look at it like exactly like what it was. It was like
Yeah,
both.
you take
Yeah.
the good things from it. You
Mhm.
recognize that a lot of it
Mhm.
was crap, but you take the good things from it. Like I
Absolutely.
wasn't even I wasn't even really on social media before
I
COVID.
wasn't either.
I
Isn't
didn't
that
have I didn't
interesting?
have any social media presence really. I like
No?
I had a website and an Instagram for my photography, but I would post like maybe once a month. I'd post a photo or whatever. Like I wasn't using it. I wasn't following anybody or using it as like a regular kind of source of like inspiration or anything. I only joined Twitter because someone told I started a writing group right after the pandemic, and someone in my writing group was like, "Oh, if you're a writer, you have to be on Twitter. That's where all the writers are, and that you get all the, you find out about all the publications and all the presses are kind of all operate from Twitter as their main kind of social media. So that's the reason I joined Twitter, and now I spend way too much time on it. It's embarrassing.
Well, you have quite a considerable following, and people like obviously really engage with you and find you very like a great personality. So obviously I tip my hat to you as a slightly smaller account. I mean, I'm not like an unknown, but uh, I think it's great. I think it's really great. I think it allows people to share of themselves like as much or as little as they want to, and sort of what survives is the vibe of things. I think that's
Yeah,
where what I'm feeling today is like very like it's everything is of the vibes. I don't know if it's a
yeah,
Wednesday thing or a you thing,
yeah.
or
No,
I don't know.
for sure. I appreciate it for like its ability to Twitter is unique in its ability to connect people. Like so when I go on Instagram, I see photos and I see stories, but I'm not really engaging with people. Like there's no back and forth really. Like you might comment on something, but mostly you're just viewing, and it's consumerist. It's very I don't know, but the for me, Twitter is very like stimulating. Like I like to talk to people, and I like interesting people, and so it's a great place to meet interesting people and to hear other people's thoughts and views, and it's this great kind of melting pot of like the best and the worst of humanity, and I kind of find it fascinating, and it grabs my attention more than the other social media does for sure. And I appreciate it for its ability to connect people. I've met so many great people. I wouldn't even have a career writing if it weren't for Twitter, because every opportunity I've had has come from Twitter essentially. I mean I cold submitted to a couple agents years ago and got nothing, just crickets, right? So this was really cool for me. Although I did my one of my first publications was from a local magazine in Edmonton. But other than that, like I had no idea who I was going to send writing to. Like, where do you send your writing other than if you didn't go to university for writing and kind of grow up in the system of the MFA and the journals and all that stuff, it's really kind of hard to know where to even send stuff. You Google it and like not much comes up really. So yeah, it was for me. It was great, and I love the people. I've met so many cool people, like just like and friends, friendships that I'm pretty sure I'll have for life. So yeah, it's been a great experience for me, even though sometimes I wish I could just shut it off.
I agree with you on both counts. I've made incredible friendships, like at least 2 or 3 people that I would call like my I mean, I hope that they would be in my life for a long time or forever, whatever it
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
but
for sure.
yeah, I definitely have, and I love the discursive nature of Twitter, like that you can be a little sharp, but then you can, kind of like revert back to, normal. Like you can explore different like facets of because it's not like I'm not spicy. I would totally debate people in real. Like I have no problem doing that now. I know that sounds so paradoxical because I said I was so shy to begin with, and I was, but I quickly learned that sometimes maybe this is like I'm not trying to be like a what's it called, manosphere person. I'm not at all, but
Right,
I do think that there is like a kind of discursive fire that if you I think that there's something good about it for men. I think instead of like using that elsewhere, like you can kind of point it with words. And so I think that it makes Twitter by far the most interesting. Like I'm on IG because you kind of have to be, but it's definitely not the same environment at all. It's like a totally different thing where Twitter is like kind of dynamic and exciting and it changes all the time with the timeline and whatever stories. Not that you have to engage with it, but that you can if you want to, or you can engage with people engaging with it, or you can totally ignore it and do your own thing, which is mostly what I do and mostly what you do actually too. So kudos to you.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, I try not to get too involved in, like, I'm not really, like, I have opinions, but I'm actually, like, I feel like um my opinions, like, I don't take them very seriously. So I try not to, like, spend too much time on the internet, like, yelling at people about
Mhm.
things, because I think I do think reality in general can be kind of subjective. Like, what kind of speaks to one person really could be completely opposite from what the life experience of another person has had, and what's drawn them to a certain conclusion. So I think the nature of reality can be a little bit subjective, and experience can be subjective, and so to be so rigid about your ideas, and so, like, argumentative and, like, hateful towards people who don't believe what you believe, I think that's kind of not a healthy way of approaching life and other people. I think I'm more of a, like, live and let live kind of person. I would like to
Absolutely.
see I would like to see certain things, like universal things, less suffering, more prosperity for everybody. But beyond that, I think I'm really not set on one specific ideology, and I think it's okay that people believe different things and
Mhm.
feel differently about their environment because they've experienced it differently than I have. So yeah,
Well, I think that's an incredible perspective to have, like with from your background, like, and then the kind of biography you laid out through this whole episode. I like to, be able to say like it's good that there's like a landscape, like a diversity of landscape of like the ideology that people have or say they have. I find that that's more the case usually, is that people will say, "Oh, I belong to this religion or this thing." But anyways, that's a little bit off on a tangent, but no, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I had a blast. We went for an hour. I think you did a great job. And I mean, we could definitely talk about genre. We could talk about horror more, but I think for like first threshold episode, if you want to come back, you're welcome. Like if your
awesome.
book,
Yeah,
if you're when your book comes out, please come
yeah.
back. Please come back to
So my
Threshold
book is
Spain.
actually, it's like a dark comedy. Well, the first book is, like, kind of like leans a little bit. Um, it's transgressive. It's not quite horror, but there's a cult. And the book I'm working on right now is a black comedy, so there's, like, murder and stuff, like, so.
Perfect.
So
Both
I feel
sound
like it's right
very
up your
much like
alley.
the
So,
material. Yeah, exactly. You totally
I'd
get
love
it.
to chat again for sure.
Okay, well, you're more than welcome to come on, like whenever you have any projects coming up that you want to plug. Obviously, I'm not a writing podcast, as you know, but I am cool with the writing crowd
Awesome.
because I I agree with you that there's a kind of like malleability in reality And I think that that's very true for writers because obviously they craft, like mythopoetically, they craft worlds, world building. So that's a big part of reality is consensus reality, especially for like someone like me who has like a chaos kind of magic background. It's like you believe what people believe kind of at least mutually informs, if not
Mhm.
creates independently like another state of reality. So I
Right.
totally agree, and I think that that's why I can kind of navigate the all it's seen as like a peripheral as I do. But I'm grateful for everyone who comes on, including you, and I want you to plug your Substack, your X slash Twitter, and any upcoming poems, projects, pieces, or anything that you want to shout out. Go for it.
Okay, great, thank you. So yeah, my Substack is just my name, Jennifer Ostopovich, and the handle is Lit Woman. And my Twitter, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at JR Ostopovich. Yeah, I'm mostly active on Twitter. Occasionally I'll post something on Instagram, but I'm not on there a lot. And in terms of projects, just I mean, you can find most of my stuff on Twitter, so that's the best place to find me. I don't have anything kind of like immediately. I have like an anthology, like a book coming out, just one story in the book in I think September, and then I'm doing some writing for a magazine I love that is like kind of alt lit directed. It's Beyond the Last Estate, so I'll have something out in their next issue as well, and I have lots of book reviews in all of their old issues, so that's a good place to find me too. Yeah, but in general, find me on Twitter. I've got my website links on Twitter and Instagram, so
They'll all be in the show notes. I'm good about that. I'm not like one of those podcasters. Yeah, everything will be included. Please check Jennifer out. Subscribe to her Substack. She's like a very warm and wonderful person, and like cool enough to come on this show, even though she probably was like, "Who's this kid?" Not that I'm a kid, but you know how it goes. So thank you again, Jennifer. Appreciate it, and have a great day.
thank you. So thrilled to be here. You were great. Great host.